Hi everyone, thanks for taking the time to look at my presentation today. I'm Julia, I'm a TA and a PhD student in the Department of Philosophy at Warwick, and this presentation is going to be about a way of implementing a more co-creative approach to seminars teaching in philosophy. Here is an outline of my plan for my presentation that's basically split it into four different parts. In parts one, I'm going to look at how I initially approach my planning and leading of my seminars in philosophy. In the second part, I'm going to look at what kind of feedback I received from students and module leader and reviewers. In part three, I'm going to share a little bit of reflection and adaptation to my teaching. And in part four, I will present how I renovated my practice on the basis of the feedback I received. So let's start taking a look at how I usually approach teaching philosophy seminars. I usually set myself two main aims. One is familiarize my students with philosophical literature and debates, which is usually considered a form of knowing that in philosophy. So I want them to know and to get to know philosophical theories, terminologies, concepts, and so on. While at the same time, I also want them to acquire philosophical skills such as critical thinking, formulation of arguments, close reading of papers. I want them also to develop a certain degree of autonomy in carrying out previous mentioned and other tasks, which we usually define as a form of knowing how in philosophy, so how we do something. How do I achieve my goals? Well, mostly through active learning, and to facilitate active learning and to facilitate the training of doing philosophy and doing philosophy together in my seminars, I usually construct occasion for peer-to-peer dialogue, which also allow for my students to develop their autonomy while also clarifying contents of philosophical literature and debates. So I ask them to review, comments, and close read parts of a paper or discuss some concepts together. I do this through small groups and pairs work, which usually take away a lot of anxiety of having to speak in front of a class and create a more welcoming and inclusive environment, which also supports active learning and deep learning. So I usually create, again, these small groups and pairs work, and I ask them to engage with the literature, engage with the topics, and discuss them with groups first, and then report them back to the class in more larger class discussion, whole class discussion. So here you can see some more concrete examples of how I implement my strategies in the seminars. So I basically create small groups and pairs activity that outline in their goal, reasons to be, and contents in the handouts that I distributed in advance of the seminar. Here I put in the images a couple of examples of a couple of handouts, one that was intended for a first year seminar and one that was intended for second and third year seminars. You can basically see that there are from 2 to 4 different tasks. I never aim to finish them all. I just put a series of a little bit of a variety in the task that are centered usually around the main points of a paper that we are discussing, or either the main concept of the lectures, and then I allow my students to pick which one they want to start with. Here you can see again a detail of the two handouts that I put in the previous slides. One shows an activity through a QR code with a poll connected to different theories of perception and a breakdown of some questions that I ask my students to tackle. And in the first one, you can see a task regarding an in-class presentation to their peers. Again, guided through some questions and some suggestion about how to better craft their in-class presentation. Here you can see some of the feedback I received about my teaching practice, to teaching observation, survey, email of students that directly commented on my practice, and as you can tell, they were pretty happy about my strategy with handouts. One module leader highlighted the fact that the in-class discussion after the small group work um, showed that the students were engaging in depth with the materials. Another module leader said that the task I created were well crafted and perfect to get the students to think through the topic. Some of my students were particularly happy about, again, handouts and the variety of activity in the seminars. And also in quantitative data, I had 90% of students saying that the seminar were well structured and well prepared. Yet I received as a comment from both a reviewer of a pedagogy module I was taking and my module leader, the idea that I could be um, more open to my students' need and interest in planning my sessions, and I could use basically a better student-centered approach to my seminars. Also, some of my students asked me to do a little bit more of something that they wanted to see more happening in the lectures, in the seminars. So someone asked for more suggestions about forming arguments. Another one suggested that we could do a little bit more close reading. Someone else wanted to hear more from their peers. So I basically found myself with a puzzle. On one side, I had an overwhelming number of positive feedback regarding the quality, help, and support and structure of my task and handouts as provided during seminars. Students were particularly enthusiastic about that, to the point in which they emailed me unprompted in telling me that the handouts were very helpful. On the other side, to the idea of being more student-centered in my approach to teaching sounded a very interesting and very positive direction to take to develop my practice, and I didn't want to leave this comment unheard, um, and I wanted to make this actionable. So what I did was opening an ongoing dialogue with my students and commenting on the feedback that I received from them and from module leader and from the reviewer. I asked them to suggest and co-create with me the handout for the seminar. So what I did was circulating a very empty, if we want, structure of a seminar with just the four main questions and four empty boxes. In advance to the seminars, and then just when we were in class provide my usual handout just in case students didn't come up with their own ideas and the desire to discuss particular topic. So I basically give them a structure with some task but not the content, so that they could play around with concept more and feel more free to direct and shape the activity during the seminars. Here you can see again the structure of the pre-circulated handout and the structure of my real handout. And keep in mind that I circulated the first and I used the second just at the end of a seminar, and just in case my students didn't already come up with their own task and ideas and exercise of or concept that they wanted to focus on and develop and discuss more in depth. At the end of the term, I finally received a final positive feedback through a nomination for Warwick Award for Teaching Excellence this year, in which one of my students particularly highlighted the fact that they were happy of me as a tutor for being open to feedback and being willing to adapt their needs and their interests.